part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
This episode of Cavs on the Break NBA podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service providing professional, affordable, and personalized therapy in a convenient online format. BetterHelp removes the traditional barriers to therapy and makes mental health care accessible to everyone. I've been using BetterHelp for the last 3 months, and I have to say, it has been absolutely amazing. Signing up was super simple, and after a brief survey, BetterHelp assigned me a licensed counselor to specifically help me through my problems. The app is super user-friendly and doesn't bog you down with the busy user interface, and you can talk or message with your therapist straight through the app. Valuing your mental health is one of the most important things you can do, and there's no better way to start than BetterHelp. Cavs on the Break is proud to highlight this company and offer a promotional code at checkout. Use promo code CAVSP3 for 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. That's CAVSP3 at checkout for 10% off the first month of counseling with BetterHelp. You will not regret investing in your mental health.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
What's good, Breakers? That sound means it's time for Cavs on the Break, NBA podcast from the Press Play Podcast Network. I'm your host, Chase Smith, and if we're coming to you this quickly after the Cavs get bounced in round 2 against the Celtics, then you know something went down, and something did. So here to help me break it down, he's the NBA writer for HoopsWire.com. He's our Cavs insider, national NBA writer, Sam Amico. Sam, the Cavs did it. They did it after player exit interviews. They did it. They fired JB Bickerstaff, 5.5 seasons, 170 wins, very good for 5th winningest coach of all time. Struggled in the playoffs. Sam, the Cavs did it. They fired Bickerstaff. When you saw the headline, what was your immediate initial thought?
Well, I don't think it was a big surprise. I think that everybody kind of figured that they would. I think the fact that it was, a week after the season ended.
Yeah.
A lot of times teams will fire coaches the next day, 2 days later. But I know Kobe Altman was at the NBA Combine in Chicago, and then he went to the Pro Day in Los Angeles and just got back a few hours. I don't know whether it was last night or this morning. We're talking on Thursday here, May 23rd, but it was right around the time that JB got fired. So Kobe had been out of town scouting, getting ready for the draft, came back to town. And as soon as he got back to town, and Chase, I'll tell you, I saw, yesterday, hoopswire.com learned that Kobe was going to be holding a press conference Friday alone. And that's not totally unusual, but still you would have thought that. To me, it just kind of felt like, okay, they must be getting rid of him before Friday. And if they're not, that means they're going to keep him, because Kobe wouldn't go up to the press conference without having an answer on what the status of JB was.
Yeah. So you think the timing is less to do with player exit interviews and conversations with Donovan Mitchell, and more so he was just out of town and came back and is taking care of his inbox, going through inbox. It's like, right. So you think it's more that?
I don't know that they would have asked Donovan directly. Mm-hmm. Donovan took off.
Yeah.
The season's over, gone. But they move, like, say, Kobe Altman, his job is to move in NBA circles. So he hears from other GMs or agents. A lot of agents may have heard from Donovan's agent, may have heard from an agent who talked to Donovan's agent, so maybe you heard, and I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if Donovan Mitchell wanted him gone, but I'm just saying if he did, or if Donovan Mitchell didn't care for JB Bickerstaff, maybe Kobe got wind of that. I think that the Cavs had already made their decision. A big problem was the first round series against Orlando. The Cavs were expected to win that series 4 or 5 games, 6 at the most, not have to come back from 18 down in Game 7 at home to advance. I think that proved to be a big problem. And frankly, Chase, breaking it down even more than that, I think the first 4 games were kind of what of the Orlando Magic series sealed JB's fate for the most part, because obviously Cavs won those first two games fairly easily because the Magic just looked shell-shocked. It's not that the Cavs played great in game 1 and 2. The Magic just looked terrified. And then they went to Orlando and got blown out 2 games in a row. And the reason I'm saying those first 4 games and using that as example is because they had Jared Allen. They had their whole team in those first 4 games, and they still looked completely lost in games 3 and 4. And when it mattered in game 6, fair or not, the coach is going to take the fall for that.
They look lost, outmatched, out physical, like everything.
Yeah, everything.
Cavs fought for every single point in that series. Nothing was easy. And we talked about this in our last episode. We hit out all the rumors, all the reasons why, playing the players, too hard in the regular season, and how he almost lost his job in the season if they hadn't have beaten Houston, or if they would have lost the home at Detroit when Detroit had that like historic losing streak. They almost there were moments in the season where this almost happened anyway, Sam. And so not really a shock to anyone if you've been following this team. Some people were like celebrating, like, oh, this is great. This is what the team needs. He's been holding the team back. Regardless, it's happened. Kobe's, hey, he's the reason why we haven't done what we like. So, he's looking out for his job. Like there's a whole bunch of, it's just the coach is the fall guy. It's the nature of the league, And so it's happened. This is the first piece, Sam, of the offseason domino to fall is Bickerstaff. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, 5.5 years, like you said, that's a pretty long tenured coach in today's NBA.
Yeah.
I don't know where he ranked, but it was up there. And, obviously there's guys like Popovich and Spoelstra who last a long time, but people, Chase, in Cleveland who have been around a while have lionized like Lenny Wilkins as the standard of a coach, which was he lasted 7 years.
Yeah.
JB almost lasted 7 years, So, and, Larry Bird, I remember as a player would say that as a player, he felt like I'm ready for a new voice after 3 years.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of players are kind of that way. I think that there is a lot to the fact that, and he and Donovan Mitchell got along fine, and he and the players got along fine. But I think this was the point in time where Donovan Mitchell was kind of like, yeah, I'm not real sure about this guy, questioning a lot of his in-game decisions, as we've heard, questioning playing guys so many minutes during regular season games. And you're right. There was a time where JB Bickerstaff almost got fired during the regular season. I mean, you think about, you mentioned him, barely beating the Pistons during that terrible losing streak. Then they finally got all their guys back at the beginning of the year. If you remember that game, like 12, I had to talk you off the ledge, Chase. They lost at home to Portland. Remember that?
That was
their full lineup, and they got beat by Portland at home. So there were a lot of moments like that. And I think the front office, and JB said this, Chase, after the season at his final press conference was, and this is true, we went to the play-in tournament, then we got the first round, then we got to the second round. Those all true, and I think that those things work in your favor if you're the coach, because I took the team a step further. I think what really worked against him, though, was all 3 of those years, the Cavs were clunky and probably close to at their worst after the All-Star break.
Yeah.
And, here we saw January, they won 17-18. Fantastic. But the fact that they were, if you remember, even the play-in tournament year, they were at their worst after the All-Star break. Certainly last year they were in the playoffs. And then this year, too, they were clunky after the All-Star break. And I think that that's, something the front office sees. And it's like, okay, that's 3 straight years of being something less than our best when it means the most.
Yep. Is this a sign that is this trending to where Mitchell is more likely to resign now? or are we dependent on coach? We haven't talked about coach candidates yet, but
Yeah.
just the current construct of the team, does this change anything from what we've talked about in our last episode? Maybe Mitchell resigning more likely, or Garland maybe coming back.
Yeah, one or the other is going to happen. Mitchell's going to resign, and if he resigns, I think Garland will get traded.
Okay,
If
so it
Mitchell,
doesn't really change much in that front.
no, I wouldn't think so. I think that the Cavs and Rich Paul, Darius Garland's agent, are pretty much ready to move on from that. I think the Cavs saw 2 years of it and thought, Darius Garland's and Donovan Mitchell, we might have to get bigger. This may not be the backcourt that leads us to a title.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell may be, but together we've seen maybe, and now we hear, the talk of Rich Paul saying that he would, not that he's ever said this, but a report says that Rich Paul would go to the Cavs from The Athletic, and I think we can certainly trust that Rich Paul would go to the Cavs and request a trade if Donovan Mitchell signs that contract extension. Do I think the coaching change or the new coach, whoever that may be, will have have some input on that? I doubt it. And I think the Cavs know who Donovan Mitchell likes. I think
as a
they're
coach.
well aware. Yes, as a coach. Now, if Quinn Snyder were available, that's who it'd be, because he loves Quinn Snyder, but Quinn Snyder is not going anywhere with the Atlanta Hawks. We've heard the name Alex Jensen, who was in Utah as an assistant, former Cleveland. Well, I guess they were the Canton Charge at the time. Alex Jensen was their coach, did a great job with them. Then it was a Cavs assistant at one time, and Donovan is particularly close with him. So, and Alex Jensen wouldn't be like an outlandish off the wall hire, because he's interviewed for so many openings over the past few years, just never gotten one. So I think that's a name to watch, but the Cavs know who Donovan Mitchell likes, and they want to make sure that everybody, it's not just something for just Donovan Mitchell, it's for the whole organization and team and everything, so you try to find that guy who has it all. And it doesn't have to be a big name. I mean, the coach of the year for the Thunder, Mark Daniel, most people can't even pronounce his name. They never even heard of the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Taylor Jenkins last year took the Memphis Grizzlies before all those injuries, and Ja Morant's stuff took them the number 2 seed in the Western Conference last year. Nobody knows Taylor Jenkins when he got that job. So you don't necessarily have to make a big splash or hire a retread or any of that. I can tell you this, Chase, I've heard at least a dozen candidates. I know that they're casting a really, really wide net, might even get up to 20.
Can I pitch my idea, Sam? Can I make a big splash right here?
I hope you do.
That maybe convinces Darius Garland to stay, just to see what happens. I'm going JJ Redick and LeBron with all this, Sam.
Oh, JJ Redick, and then LeBron comes back. Well, that would convince Darius Garland to stay, because Rich Paul would be. But I said all along, hey, Steve Kerr replaced Mark Jackson with the Warriors, and Steve Kerr had no head coaching experience, right? And he was a former NBA sharpshooter.
On the house you're talking Mark Price?
Oh, well, no, I was talking JJ Redick, but Mark Price could be another guy too. Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking JJ Redick, but I don't know that if I don't have a pick, but is that your pick? JJ Redick?
No, it's not my pick. It's my dream scenario. How cool would it be, like, for that coach to come on with LeBron and just run it back with LeBron? Nothing changes. Keep Jared. Just keep everyone at LeBron and JJ Redick. Let's go. Make it work, Dan Gilbert.
I'm in. I'm all the way in on that.
Keep Okoro.
No, I'm all the way in.
Yeah.
I don't know how you would get LeBron though. You'd have to trade somebody, right?
For what?
So he'd have
the
to
salary cap is that,
or
is
he
that,
could sign the minimum.
but is that like the NFL? The salary cap doesn't exist.
NBA, yeah, you can only go over a certain threshold when you're making trades now because of the new collective bargaining agreement. All you would have to do, I believe, is send back matching salary, which if LeBron picks up that option, you've got to come up with $54 million to send the Lakers. But if he didn't, which we're discussing something that's never going to happen, by the way. But if
Yeah,
he did, if LeBron didn't pick up the option, he could sign in Cleveland for
sure.
pennies on the dollar for him.
I said dream scenario. I
Yeah.
don't think that's going to happen,
Hey,
but
I have no idea right now what's going to happen in terms of who they're going to hire.
it's closer now than it was when we had a head coach. It definitely couldn't have happened when we had a head coach, but now we don't have a head coach, and it could be any number of people. Why couldn't it be JJ, and why couldn't LeBron come with them?
Just don't hire the coach before you know what LeBron's decision is, because that's what they did with David Blatt in 2014.
Oh yeah. What about any internal candidates? I mean, Luke
Yeah.
Walton, I'm sure will get a look.
Yeah, Luke Walton's a player favorite.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I'm sure he'll be considered. I don't know how seriously considered, but I'm sure he'll be in the mix.
Yeah.
You know, former Cavalier. I've had people say to me, other media members say, don't you think the Cavs are going to stay in their, like, kind of stay in their family tree with a Luke Walton or somebody else? And I said, no, I don't think they're
Yeah, I don't
considering
either.
that at all. But I think Luke Walton's a candidate for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so by the time people listen to this, Kobe Altman will have addressed the media most likely. Are we going to learn anything new on Friday, Sam?
Well, he'll give the reasons for the decision on JB Bickerstaff. And I'm sure he'll give a lot of, you know, what he thinks they need to improve on, what areas of the team. Obviously, I think they need a backup big guy. They need more shooters. You always need more shooters. I think that they're pretty confident, and this is one of the reasons JB was let go, is that Max Strus and Sam Merrill are better than the shooters we saw in the playoffs, and that's because they didn't get, there was very little offense created for them by the coaching staff as far as we could see. So
Yeah.
I think that's what we'll learn from Kobe. He's not going to give away any.
Yeah. Are you going?
I'm going to try. If they live stream it, I probably won't go, but I hope to go. It's at 11. I don't know.
Ooh.
Find
He
out.
could be addressing you, Sam.
Yeah, he doesn't do that very often, other than to say hello once in a while. But other than that, yeah.
You guys used to be bros.
When he was a low-level scout and I was writing for Fox Sports Ohio, he and I would stand on the court before games and make jokes.
Yeah.
And when he got the GM job, I actually emailed him and said, well, I guess we won't be making any more jokes and hanging out. And he said, you know what his email back was? Oh no, we're going to do it more now.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. All right. Well, his job's safe, right? This in effect buys him another round of experiments to try to make this work.
Yeah, I don't think that his job was really in danger. I'll say this, it's going to be in danger if Donovan Mitchell doesn't sign the contract extension. If Donovan Mitchell, and they won't fire Kobe now if Donovan Mitchell doesn't sign the contract extension, but he's really, really going to be on thin ice within the next, the next season.
If Donovan Mitchell,
if he does sign that contract extension, the vibes are going to be great.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be happy. Everybody will love Kobe. So yeah, I think he's mostly safe.
If he doesn't re-sign, Sam, I don't have enough sugar-free pop to drink. If he doesn't re-sign
that's trouble. Well, then all of a sudden
catastrophic.
Yeah, because you just got to the second round of playoffs, even though it wasn't pretty, but you're looking at things like we're on our way. Well, now all of a sudden you got to gut the roster because your main guy once traded, and then you got to start from scratch, And so my gut says he's gonna. Now, Chase, my gut also tells me to go to Taco Bell at 1 a.m., so I wouldn't always listen to it, but that's what I think is going to happen. Yeah. I think he's going to at least sign for the 4-year max extension.
Yeah. All right, Sam, one final thing. We didn't want this to be super long, but we are going to be here with you all off season long when things go down, and we had to record this pod. Unfortunately, Sable couldn't be here tonight, which we understand. John, we wish you could be here to rub it in our face and tell us that you knew this was going to happen, because he did predict this. He was like, yo, John's gone. He was telling us in the middle of the Magic series, Bickerstaff's done. He's done. He's done. He's done. He was telling us that. So kudos to Sable. If you listen to, I don't know what minute we are, 20 some minute mark, that, it did happen. So Sam, who's your preferred, if you had the power to hire someone, who is Sam Amico's hire for the Cavs?
Boy, I haven't really looked at the list. I don't think, and I think he's a good coach, but I don't really want Frank Vogel. I mean, and I think he's a good coach. I mean, you think about what he did with Indiana.
Yeah.
Back
NBA
then,
champion Frank Vogel. Come on, that counts.
And then he won the title with the Lakers. Yeah. So I mean, I think Frank Vogel's a good coach if you have a good roster constructed. He's not going to push you over the top with a lousy roster, but he did a great job in Indiana with Roy Hinson, Danny Granger, Paul George. Those teams were fantastic. Then he went to Orlando with a terrible roster, and those teams were terrible.
Yeah.
And then I think the Suns had a poorly constructed roster, and they got bounced in the first round. And I don't think Frank Vogel's to blame for that, but he's not a guy I want. To me, did really have to look at the list.
Did LeVert hit the Vogel Pacers? Was that after?
I think LeVert was after that. Yeah, because he was with the Nets before that.
Because that was McMillan Pacers.
Yeah. Nate McMillan's a guy I really like.
Hey, yo.
Now that you mentioned him, I really like Nate McMillan. I just don't know, has he been out of the game too long?
I think that's a parallel move.
I think Nate McMillan's way better than JB. Nate McMillan took the Atlanta Hawks that weren't any good to the conference finals. Nate McMillan, every team he's coached has gotten to the conference finals.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he's been a fantastic coach. But I just wonder if he's been out of the game too long. And because I don't. It's
been like 2 seasons. It hasn't.
No, but I mean, he hasn't even been an assistant anywhere, I don't think. I do like James Borrego. The Charlotte Hornets won 10 games. They 10-game improvement 3 years in a row under him. That's pretty good. That's 30 more wins from when you took the job. He comes from the Spurs tree of Greg Popovich and Mike Budenholzer and those guys. So I do like Borrego. Again, do you think that's a splashy enough move to get you where you're going? I don't know. Maybe they go, maybe they do go out and get, I'm not saying JJ Redick, but somebody like that that's kind of a surprise hire who hasn't coached and is a former player. Sometimes you just go out and get a former player who wants to coach or who's been assistant.
I mean, well, Jason Kidd's making it work in Dallas.
Yeah, well, like Sam Cassell has been, interviewing for jobs in multiple places. So I think that there's, Ty Lue led him to a championship, the Cavs in 2016. Yeah. So I think there's a lot to be said for considering a former NBA player that the players know.
Yeah. All right. I really like Terry Stotts. I think that's my.
Oh gosh, yeah, I do too. But I'm afraid to say it out loud because I mentioned him. People are like, no, but I don't want to interrupt you, Chase. But he took the Blazers to the playoffs 8 straight years, and a lot of those teams didn't even deserve to go. And
I think there's a lot of similarities in Lillard and Mitchell's game.
And Lillard loves him.
Yeah,
loves Terry.
But not super tall, but pretty ball dominant. Create their own shot. Has a lot of range. Really great finish. And so I don't know. I think some similarities there. I think the East is pretty open, Sam.
Me too.
And I know the Celtics are whatever. I think the path to the finals is in the East. The West, there's a gauntlet you have to go through.
Yeah.
We talked about this previously. The East is way more open than the West. If I'm LeBron, so I'm gonna go back to my LeBron thing. If I'm LeBron, there's no way I'm going to be able to compete against the Mavericks, the Timberwolves, the Nuggets, or the Thunder. There's no way.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you would think that the Clippers are still in that mix. I mean, there's a gauntlet in the
Yeah.
West that's
And so
Pelicans are up and coming. I agree with you. I look at this Caps team and I'm like, if I'm LeBron James, yeah, I go back there. Boston's not the 2018 Golden State Warriors. This is
very vulnerable, very vulnerable.
yeah,
I think there could be five, six teams that could be in the Eastern Conference Finals, and it would be like, oh yeah. If the Sixers were fully healthy, who knows what happens with them? If the Bucks are fully healthy, who knows what happens in any of those series? If the Knicks are fully healthy, I just think it is way more open than the West.
Agreed.
And so I think it's a very attractive job. And I think the East should be an attractive conference to play in. And I don't know why LeBron isn't coming back.
Your dreams of LeBron aside, you would like Terry Stotts.
I think, yeah, I think that makes sense. Vogel, I think, is a boring, but like, you know what you're going to get. Professional. I don't know if he has like the fire that Strus and maybe Mitchell want. I don't think it would elicit the emotion that we want to see Mobley play with.
Yeah, Vogel's way too vanilla for me. And I think he's a decent coach. I don't know, just
especially with the team that struggles with physicality and like I don't think that is like if I have a team with Draymond or with another like very like I think a Vogel is a really good balance with that.
Right. Right. With a team with a strong personality. Like
yes. That. Or this is really, really physical. Like I don't think that would really bring out the.
Yeah, I agree.
What we have seen we need this Cavs team. But I agree. I think he's a great coach. I think McMillan is better on defense than Bickerstaff. I just
yes. And they were pretty good defensively, but yeah. McMillan may not have the offensive creativity. You're right.
Which would be my concern there. I thought the Warriors assistant, who's that?
Kenny Atkinson.
I think
that was with the Nets.
That's right.
He was the last coach. He got fired the day before the season shut down for COVID.
That's right. And so yeah, I think it's an attractive position. I think we still have, Mobley is still a great player. Spider is an all NBA player. And we don't have a lot of like draft picks, but we still have some pieces, which I think is important. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Sam, what's the next domino piece to fall? Is it the Mitchell re-signing? Is it the coach hiring, or what's going to happen next?
That's a great question. I would predict that the coach hiring comes next because my guess is they want to get that completed before the NBA draft, which is now a month away.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing they'll hire a coach and then they'll do the draft, but I think they'll know what Donovan Mitchell's going to do here within the next few weeks.
I mean, that could help bring in a coach too. And so
absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know if it's weird to sign a multi-year extension without having a head coach. You know what I mean? Like that's
right. Yeah.
That's also weird.
But yeah, you've got to figure that out. It's really going to be helpful if the Cavs know what he's going to do. He doesn't have to do it. He just has to tell them. And, look, that makes the whole summer and everything so much easier.
Yeah. One final question, Sam, before we bounce here. Did JB lose the locker room?
I think that he may have a little bit. I think he, started to get to that point, or they felt like he was on the brink of losing it. I know the players seem to respect and admire him for the most part, but if Donovan Mitchell didn't, and Donovan Mitchell kind of turned on him a little bit, as we're hearing some of these reports say, then that's enough. A coach has to keep his star player. He can't lose him. You can lose the rest of your locker room and have the star player on board, and you're going to be fine. If you have the rest of the locker room on board and your star player's teetering or you've lost them, you're done. So I think that he may have lost, or at least was getting to the point where he was losing Donovan Mitchell, which is hard to do. Mitchell is not very judgmental. He's very tolerant. He's a cheerleader for everybody. I just think that he probably, if you lost Mitchell's respect, then that's going to put you over the edge. But I think that JB had a lot of other things working against him as well.
Yeah. If I have one coaching candidate that tells me he's going to develop Point Mobley, I'm offering him a contract on the spot. He's not leaving the office without a contract.
Well, I figured you would be that way. But let me say this. If Donovan Mitchell really loved JB Bickerstaff, he'd still be the coach.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Well, I love this podcast, Sam. And so
I love the podcast and you.
Well, unfortunately, this podcast has to go now, but we will be back, I promise. And that does it for this episode of Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Thank you all so much for downloading and listening. Shouts to the Press Play Podcast Network for making this possible. Shouts to our sponsor, BetterHelp. Sam, BetterHelp is sponsoring this podcast all summer long, where we're offering a 10% off discount on mental health services that they offer. So it's very, very exciting.
Awesome. Yeah.
Make sure to check that out. Follow us on Cavs on the Break. We always follow back. Follow Sam on Twitter at Amico Hoops. Catch his works and writings at hoopswire.com at Wire Hoops. I think even though he's not here, his prediction that he would be fired, I think Sable gets the junkyard dog.
I'm with you because he predicted it 10 days ago. He said.
Oh, at least.
Well, I think he posted something on Facebook showing his prediction on WJW.
Oh, yeah.
Fox 8 News on the air.
Yeah.
So he's tooting his own horn, but hey, you're right. And you win the junkyard dog for it.
That's right. Well, hey, everyone have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. We will be back as soon as there's something to be back for. All right, Sammy?
Sounds good to me.
All right, man. Mike Breen, take us out.
Congratulations, Cleveland. Your decades-long wait is finally over. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.